Hello and welcome. This is Paul Ryder, and in this video today we're going to be talking about a very serious topic, which is addictions. Now, billions of people, that's with a B, billions of people struggle with addictions each and every day. Now, when I was growing up, I was told that if you smoke or you drink lots of alcohol or you have narcotics such as heroin or cocaine, then you're an addict. But as we're becoming more and more aware today, anything can be an addiction. Social media is one of the biggest ones that is plaguing humanity at this moment in time. How many people sit there scrolling on their phone or whatever device for hours watching these reels and memes, totally tuning out of life? So it could be other things such as relationships where people become codependent and obsessed with each other in that romantic relationship. Or it could be a parent who focuses all of their attention on a child. And I mean all of their attention, to the detriment of their life as a human being, because all they identify with themselves as is, I am a parent and nothing else. Now, to share with you in this as well, I haven't just read about this, I've actually lived addiction and I've seen it firsthand. My first exposure of addiction was with my dad, who was full-blown alcohol addict, and he actually died when I was 14 years old, and the devastation that he left behind with his struggles. Now, I'm totally at peace with my past now and what my dad went through, but it did teach me a lot. However, I want to share, before we even get into this video, about looking at the undercurrents of why addictions can happen, is that I used to be an addict myself to many different things. And I say with a strong assertion, I used to be an addict and not anymore. So the two areas that I was most addicted to was sugar and caffeine. Now, different people have different perspectives of that. Some people will say, come on, sugar and caffeine, it's not really that bad. But more and more people are becoming very aware that sugar and caffeine are incredibly addictive. Sugar can be classed as the cocaine of the food world, and it really is. But with me, with my addictions, I used to be taking, for caffeine, between about 1,000 to sometimes 2,000 ml of caffeine a day, which is 5 times the recommended daily allowance. Or it was with sugar, and I would be consuming about 300 grams of sugar per day, whereas they reckon 20 grams of junk food sugar a day is pretty much what you should be taking for a healthy amount. But for me, I was exercising 7 days a week, 3 hours a day as well, sometimes even more than that, which was another addiction. But because I was exercising so much, it didn't really show. And then further along in my life, I got addicted to amphetamines, which is speed, and MDMA, with which people would then say, all right, now that's serious, now you're an addict. But the more serious addictions that I found almost impossible to give up was that sugar and caffeine. However, I want to share something with you now that absolutely broke me, even though I didn't think I could get any lower with my self-worth and low self-esteem. I actually went to a doctor, and this is back in maybe 1995, and hopefully things have changed. I know doctors now, myself as friends, and they don't see the world the same way as this guy, who I point blank refused to call a doctor. So I went to see him. I was struggling with these addictions, with sugar and caffeine and training, for example, because I was barely even having relationships with anybody, let alone romantic relationships, because all I wanted to do was train all the time. And I remember I sat there in that doctor's surgery, and I said to the person that I was struggling with everything and I didn't know what to do. And he asked me a few questions about life. And I said, well, I lost my dad when I was 14 through alcohol abuse, and my mum had addictions as well. And his summary was, it's probably genetic. Now, I remember those words very clearly. And I'm thinking, I walked out that surgery and I thought, well, that's my life screwed. I've got no options about this. That's just that I'm a junkie and I've got no way around this. And I remember walking out of that surgery feeling totally broken in every way, because now not only do I have low self-esteem, no confidence, no self-worth, feeling like a second grade person, feeling like a total failure, now I'm a genetic addict as well. And I think things just can't keep getting this bad. But after speaking to him, that was a spiral down, which may be even worse. And the reason that I say that is because you can see people online today and they're making these declarative claims that if you're an addict, it's probably genetic. Well, it's kind of like Hitchens' law, or Hitchens' razor, I think it's called, where what can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. And that's what I say when anybody watches my videos. Run everything that I say through your own filter. It doesn't mean that I'm right. It just means this is an opinion. But for me, when I see people online and they're saying that addictions are genetic, and they're saying that to everybody out there, to millions of people they may not even meet, that could have a devastating impact on a vulnerable person's life. So with this video, what I want to do is go over an overview of a deeper part about addiction and why it might be there. Now, one thing that I want to share with you here, I've known many people who've worked as volunteers or support workers in drug and alcohol rehab clinics over the years. And I remember a phenomenal phrase, very powerful phrase. And it says, the brain doesn't recognize the drug. Now, the drug can be anything, remember, smoking, drinking, narcotics, romantic partner, working long hours, anything. The brain doesn't recognize the drug. It recognizes the feeling. Now, from my perspective as a trauma therapist, I deal with behavioral challenges, such as if we've had trauma in the past. Now, we don't have to have had severe beatings to get trauma. It could be being rejected, put down, demoralized, degraded in some way, whether it's in the home or it could be at school or with a teacher or extended family. But if we've had challenging times and we now have that anxiety, I want you to imagine this as an analogy. In life, we've got this anxiety, and that anxiety is telling us that we are not good enough, that we are a failure, that we are going to get found out, that we are stupid, that we are going to get rejected, that we are going to lose our job. The list goes on, and it's this nagging self-doubt that I'm more than certain you would have felt at some point in your life, if not all the time. Now, what happens is, when a person, say, smokes, now I've never smoked myself, but I've spoken to many people who do. Now what happens is they've got this noise going on in the background, and when they start smoking, for example, because of the narcotic effect that it has, that noise gets quieter. They're distracted because of the feeling in their physical body. Or it could be with alcohol. A person's got that nagging doubt, and then they have that alcohol and it gets quieter. Or it could be a person who's got that nagging self-doubt, and then if they work 80 hours a week, it gets quieter. So as you can see here, there is a pattern building up. It is that a person's got trauma response from their past in some way, and it's formed low self-esteem, low self-worth, and anxiety projections through their life today. And then when they take that drug of choice, it quietens the noise in their head, meaning that it's easier for them to function. Because that nagging voice, it gets tiring, it gets overwhelming, it gets exhausting. Now, the truth is that myself, when I'm working through this with people, is that it's about working at the level of the trauma projection. So the trauma projection hides in what I call Pandora's box and projects onto our life today with all those nagging self-doubts. But if we've not been taught about how to deal with these nagging self-doubts, because as the gurus will all say, is it real today? And then if it's not, then just stop worrying about it. Now, don't get me wrong, there are phenomenal people out there, coaches, trainers and therapists who do go into that. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there making reels and videos that just don't want to put the time in, leading people down a path. So if you don't look into that constant noise in the background and where it's coming from, then what's going to happen? The mind's going to want to seek some solace. And that solace could be in smoking, where it gets quieter, or a bottle of wine or a beer, and then it seems to get quieter. Or it could be working long hours, and it seems to get quieter. Or it could be the list goes on. So in this, what I want you to do is see that addictions are not necessarily addictions. They're painkillers. They're painkillers. Emotional painkillers. It gives us a break away from that constant noise that we constantly hear. And it could be we're in a romantic relationship and we've got that nagging self-doubt that that person's going to leave us or reject us in some way. So what do? We focus on something else to drown out that noise. But for me, and how I overcame my addictions, was not working on the addictions themselves, like so many people do. You see so many times online today, a person might smoke because they've got this noise going on in the background. So they smoke and it gets quieter. So then what happens? They go to a guru and the guru says, I'll help you stop smoking. So then they give up smoking and what comes back? That noise. They've got that noise back again. They haven't dealt with the underlying reason it's there in the first place. So then that person, now they can't smoke, they might start drinking alcohol. And then that quietens that voice down. And then they go to that guru again and say, well, I've stopped smoking now. Now I've started drinking. And the guru will say, give me more money and I'll get you to stop drinking as well. So then the guru gets them to stop drinking through whatever technique and the noise comes back. And this is why people can keep jumping from one thing to another, to another, to another, to another. For me, as a coach, trainer and therapist, I work on the deeper part of the mind rather than just the addictions themselves. Because what I've noticed, and you've probably noticed this yourself, what can happen is people can jump from one addiction to another, to another, to another, to another. So in summary to this video, because I could talk about this for hours because it's such a huge area, the one thing I'd suggest, you've got your past trauma projections projecting onto today, creating that noise within the mind, and then turning to some form of an addiction to try to reduce that noise so you can get some respite. The process that I used anyway was to work on my trauma projections. When the trauma projections disappeared because I worked through them, the addictions fell away because the voice wasn't there telling me that I was not good enough, or I was going to get rejected, or there was a failure. So if you feel that this can be of help to you, or it feels like this is something that you want to work with, the one thing I'd suggest is get out your journal. Start writing down those nagging self-doubt thoughts in the back of your mind and start to ask yourself, where do you think they came from? And why do you think they're here today? And keep in mind, it's not just a simple case of saying, are they real today? And if they're not, just simply forget about them, because it doesn't work like that. Past trauma projections might be hidden away from the conscious mind. So for today, start to look at what that nagging self-doubt is in the back of your mind and ask yourself if you are turning to addictions to try and quiet those voices down. This is a big area to deal with addiction. This won't be necessarily the easiest process, but it can be a permanent one. But any questions you have around this process, feel free to put them in the comments below. And if you want to hear any other areas around addiction, or you want me to start making other videos around this area, feel free again to put them in the comments below. My purpose is to build a channel where we all work together to help everybody grow.